we're going to kick it off. First starting with the NFC. I'll let you go ahead and take the reins. Who you got in fourth coming in at NFC East?
Actually, no, you go first. I want to see what you say.
All right, well,
I'll let you go first.
All right, I got the Commanders coming in 6-11. You know, Sam Howell just really not confident with the QB situation over there in Washington.
Yeah.
They got some weapons, man. Scary Terry, obviously. Brian Robinson over there. They signed Darren Payne 4-year extension. Not a bad extension this offseason. They're looking to move Chase Young, who's he was number 2 in the draft, top 3 pick in the NFL draft.
I think he was 2 after Burrow, yeah.
Yeah. So they're looking to make a trade, maybe for a more, play now guy. They declined his 5th-year option. Just really the quarterback situation. The other 3 seem to have their guy. So, it's a quarterback league. Commanders 6-1. Think they can win games. They're one of the new ownership, kind of fun team to watch. That's not really good, but they play some exciting ball. 6-11. I got them at that 4th spot in that NFC East.
Yeah, so I also do have the Commanders coming in at the 4th spot. I had them at 5-12, so just one game off. Pretty much the same exact thing. Like you mentioned, the big question mark is Sam Howell. How will he play? Like you kind of mentioned, I'm not too high on him, but we'll see. Kind of, up and down at the end of last season, show some flashes. But until, we really go out there and see what he can really do, I'm just not comfortable, saying that this is going to be a good team. But, they have a brutal schedule. Their weapons, you mentioned Scary Terry, Antonio Gibson, maybe is this going to be the year he finally gets utilized like Christian McCaffrey? We'll see. Eric Bieniemy is coming over as their new OC, so hopefully, it'll look more exciting because, we all know what he's done with Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense, so hopefully we can see them, be more explosive. But I like their defense. You mentioned Chase Young. I think he'll end up coming back on this last year prove-it deal to try to get that contract next year. But, 2 really good D tackles, like you mentioned, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, who just signed that extension. And I really like their secondary, a lot of young guys, feisty, Derek Forrest and Benjamin St. Just at corner. They just have a lot of solid players, but they don't really have any outside of Scary Terry. There's no real top end talent. So, like you mentioned, tough schedule, a pretty good division. I got them at 5-12.
Yeah, it's not. We're not too far off. Maybe this squeaky game. Sam Howell, young QB. We'll see. Number 3, man. Kind of going back and forth. I almost had these records tied. But I got the Giants at 10-7 coming in 3rd place. I think they're going to come back. Dexter Lawrence, 4-year deal. Drafted Jalen Hyatt. Good speed on the outside. Danny Dimes, he got his contract. Saquon finally reporting. This kind of made me change. I had him kind of an 8-win team. The Saquon news, being the heart of that offense. I think they kind of carry it. They signed Paris Hilton and Jamison Crowder, veteran on the inside in the slot. But Andrew Thomas, also one of the best tackles in the game. He just got a 5-year, $117 extension as well. James Robinson also added to that running back room in New York. I think they're able to squeak out 10 games at 10-7, come 3rd in the division, but they're the Giants every year, middle of the pack, maybe, fighting for a chance at that 3rd wild card spot.
Yeah, so I got the Giants coming in at 3rd as well, but you seem to be a lot higher because I have them at 6-11. I was going through their schedule and I don't see 10 wins at all, but it's tough, man. Daniel Jones signed that big contract. Saquon, we just know with his, holdout or whatever, but he's back, and he's pretty much their entire offense. But can you rely on another healthy full season from Saquon after we know the injury history? At this point in his career, he's in year 5, 6? We know the tread on his tires. Running backs don't really have that much longevity. Outside of Darren Waller, who they just brought in, really no good receiving weapons. You mentioned Jamison Crowder and Jalen Hyatt, who's a rookie. Paris Campbell, but none of those names really do anything. Like, they don't really move me. They got a bunch of inside receivers and then Darren Waller. That's it. The main thing for me is their coach, Brian Dable. We saw what he did last year. I think he'll be able to coach these guys really, really well again, and they'll be able to win some tough games. Their defense, I mean, outside of a few bright spots, you mentioned Dexter Lawrence got that contract. Thibodeau coming in his second year. I like, excuse me, Xavier McKinney, solid safety, but overall, also just looking at the schedule and looking at the teams they play, because, I think they have to play, I think they play both East, so they're in the NFC East. They're playing all these solid teams, and then I do also think they play the AFC East, and we're going to talk about all of those teams, how that's possibly the best division in football. So the Giants, I think, are a solid team. I mean, Daniel Jones, I don't know how much of a believer you are in him, but I mean, I think we pretty much know what he is at this point of his career. He's an underwhelming passer and a solid runner, so they didn't really do much to improve the weapons, so I don't think he'll take another leap. I mean, you just bring in Darren Waller, who's probably the best receiver he's played with in his career. Like, I don't know. So the Giants are just, I think last year they overachieved so much, and this year they kind of come back down to earth and get towards the middle of the pack. And I just, 6-11 is where I had them at.
I was going to say, you're the Brian Dable guy, so Brian Dable coach teams do well so far from what we've seen, what he's done with Josh Allen, and then last year we've talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dable will be able to get him a few good wins, like if they split with the Cowboys or the Eagles or something like that, or pull off a tough win on the road. I think they play like the Seahawks or somebody. I don't know, maybe, but the schedule's crazy, bro. I was going through it, dog. It's like, I think towards the middle of the season, they have like a crazy schedule. I mean, the whole NFC East, because they were all so good last year, have pretty tough schedules.
Yeah. We'll see. We know what Danny Dimes is. I was going to say, like, not kind of Ryan Tannehill, but can't pass like him, in my opinion, back when he was with the Dolphins, obviously. Not now.
Yeah, bro, like their first, like, bro, they could deadass start like 1-5, bro. Like Dallas at home, at Arizona, okay, I'll give them that. But then at San Fran, Seattle, at Miami, at Buffalo, then they got Washington, and then the Jets, which is a home game. They both play in the same stadium. So their first half of the season is where it's really tough. But then towards the end, they get the Green Bay, the Rams, New Orleans Saints, depending on how high you are on them. But it's going to be tough. I don't think they can get 10 wins.
Yeah. Well, my predictions with the NFC East last year weren't as good as yours, so
I don't even know what I said last year. I didn't have the Giants winning that many games, so I was off. So.
Oh, no, I think we were all off with the Giants, but you did say the Eagles would win that division, and you were right. So with the Giants coming in number 3, that leaves room for the number 4 team, who I have kind of similar to the Giants, man. 10-7. I might give them 11 wins on the year. The Dallas Cowboys. I really like the move they made, getting the veteran corner in Stephon Gilmore. That was a decent pickup this offseason. Added Brandon Cooks. They got rid of Takk McKinley. So now Dak, under new coaching, supposed to be a slower pace offense, maybe limit those turnovers that he's had, problems with.
Yeah,
you said he promised under how many picks?
Bro, the other day he was like, I'm going to have less than 10 turnovers.
Yeah.
Or 10 interceptions.
So we'll see if that lives up. I don't think it really will, but you got another season. CeeDee Lamb, one of the most talented receivers on the outside. Tony Pollard finally gets to be that workhorse, take over with no Zeke. So they got a clear RB1. It really just, it's up to Dak at the end of the day. I mean, we say it year in and year out. One of the higher paid quarterbacks in this league. Hasn't been proven to win big moments in big games. when it's mattered most. Can he do it this year? I mean, we'll see. That's why I kind of got him, 10-7, 11-6, kind of bouncing, trying to fight for that wild card in the NFC East.
Yeah, so I also have the Cowboys at 10-7, so I'm with you there. But like you mentioned, bro, they have a solid roster. If you look around, addition of Gilmore, I like. They just locked up Diggs. He just got his big contract. Micah Parsons, I mean, is he the best pass rusher in the league? You can argue it. He plays all over the defense, drop back in coverage. He's arguably, just one of, if not the best defensive player in football. He's going to be in DPOY convos every single season he's healthy. So he's on your defense. You like your chances. You mentioned they lost Zeke. They also lost Dalton Schultz. Not too sure how much that's going to hurt him. But, two people that did contribute to that offense. But you didn't mention they bring in Brandon Cooks and that addition to, finally give CeeDee Lamb a true number 2 receiver so he can continue to thrive as that number 1. But I mean, we know what Dak Prescott is at this point. I feel like this is just going to be another season of the Cowboys just being a pretty good team. And, the NFC being a weaker conference this year, I think definitely helps them. And I think they can be one of the better teams in the NFC. But kind of like you mentioned, we know what they are at this point. We kind of know what Dak Prescott is. I like some of the, talent they have on the roster, but I just don't think it's enough to kind of put them over the edge of those top elite teams.
Yeah, and their safety, Donovan Wilson, leading tackler, I think it was just today.
Oh, yeah, I did see that he
got
had a
injured.
hamstring or something. He was out, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be out. Maybe, start of the season, be back, maybe sit out a little.
I did see
that. But,
yeah. I don't like the Cowboys, but I think they'll be a solid team in the
Yeah.
NFC.
I mean, you said it. Talent's there for sure, roster depth. And I did see that Parsons is probably going to have his hand in the dirt a little more rushing the QB than dropping back.
I mean, you would want, but I mean, either way, he's gonna
make plays.
He's gonna make plays.
No doubt.
But yeah, you probably would want him rushing the passer more, just because he's so dominant at everything he does.
Yeah, top 5 rusher. In this league, you probably want him rushing every play other than half of them.
I would say top 3, arguably number 1.
Top 3?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think Myles Garrett.
Okay, finally.
Bosa and Micah. Any of those 3, if you want to argue for them being the best, I think you can.
See, coming from you, I got to show love to the person I hate the most, and TJ Watt, when it comes to being a pass rusher.
Well, yes, the only reason I just wouldn't say just only because of the injury, and it's so close with those other guys. If he was completely healthy, then yeah, it'd be 4, but just to make it more clear cut, you gotta find something, and it sucks as an injury, but I mean, if he comes back fully healthy next year, he can be a 20-sack guy. We've seen him do it before, so I'm just saying, based off of last year, the injury, yeah, he kind of regrets, but yeah, he's obviously up there. So I would just have him at number 4 right now because of the injury.
All right.
And because of, you got to give credit to, being fully healthy and what those other 3 guys did that entire season.
And then for number 1 in your NFC East, man, I got the Philadelphia Bulldogs, man, because they went ahead and drafted all of Georgia's roster this year, man. But now I got the Philadelphia Eagles, man, 12-5, big additions, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter. 2 of the most talented players in that draft. Obviously, off the field concerns with some of those. Hurts gets a payday after his big year last year. They signed Rashad Penny to the backfield, kind of add some depth to that running back room, and he could be a workhorse paired with Devontae Swift. And then you have Devontae Smith on the outside, A.J. Brown. We know what those guys can do. Got your boy Philly Goddard over there. The defense playing well. Super Bowl, obviously, take, the little turf monster or whatever, Philly. But the Eagles, they ran through the NFC last year. NFC, obviously, not as heavy or dominant as the AFC side. So the Eagles, one of the favorites in the NFC, looking to repeat as champions of that conference. I think they'll do it just fine. Hurts proved that he could throw balls in tight windows. And, make big plays down the stretch. And, I mean, you get them in the 4th and 1, 1st and goal at the 1. You know what the Eagles are running. Nobody could stop it. That O-line, that push. Mm-hmm. I did see that players were mad that the Eagles run that play so much.
The 97%, I think that's what they call it. Yeah.
It's Kelsey's favorite, 97%. I mean, come on. I got to give props to the Eagles. This roster they've built top down absolutely, address the weaknesses and the concerns you had last year with this offseason. So, on paper, they should be better than they were last year. But
yeah, so I also have the Eagles at 12-5, which is funny. We have the same exact record. I'm more of a level-headed fan. I'm not gonna come out here and say 13-14 wins for my favorite team, which is very possible. I think it could happen.
I might have said 12. I don't have the number on here. Maybe you'll start 2. Who knows?
But I'll stay up more on the conservative side, just so I can be pleasantly surprised when we do end up winning 15 games. But regardless, I mean, you pretty much covered everything. I think it's a very similar roster to last year. We were able to bring back a lot of guys that, didn't really think would be around the next year. Kelsey, he was up in the air. Lane Johnson, those 2 guys kind of debating retirement. We didn't know if they were going to come back. We're able to bring them back. We keep both Slate and Bradbury, especially James Bradbury, someone everyone thought that was going to be gone during the offseason. He comes back. D-line stays intact for the most part. The only person we leave is Hargrave. He's over there for the 49ers. But, I mean, like you mentioned with that draft, we brought in Jordan Davis last year, and this year we bring in Jalen Carter, more depth at the D tackle. So those guys will be able to, pretty much hopefully produce and outproduce what Hargrave was able to do last year. He had a solid year. Brandon Graham comes back. Fletcher Cox still on the team. 2 guys, another, couple veterans that we weren't sure if they would stay around or kind of go look for a payday somewhere else. But for the most part, the team is intact. Only real, notable name I would say we lost offensively from the weapon group is Miles Sanders, but you bring in Rashad Penny, you bring in DeAndre Swift, 2 guys that can hopefully, put together, give you the same production. Extremely good weapon group. In terms of receivers, we know what you're going to get day in and day out from that receiver core. Only question mark is Quez Watkins. Very up and down player, a love-hate relationship with Quez, but hopefully we'll see him step up, continue to thrive in the wide receiver 3 role. But I mean, like you mentioned, NFC, it should be relatively easy for the Eagles to win. The NFC, you got the 49ers, the Seahawks, I think they'll be really good. But outside of that, I mean, it's not really too much competition. So I definitely do think the Eagles are looking to get back to the Super Bowl. Only real questions this year are, we lost both of our offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. They both got head coaching jobs based on what they did last year. But Brian Johnson, the new OC, he's been the quarterback coach for Jalen Hurts his entire starting career in Philadelphia. So nothing too different there. Still similarity. A guy that's been around the building, knows the offense we like to run. So it shouldn't be too much turmoil there. And then the new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai from Seattle. You saw how good those Seahawks defenses were in recent years, last year, especially, Tariq Woolen in that secondary, how they're able to, continue playing really, really good ball in that secondary. So barring injury, man, the Eagles should be one of the best teams in the NFL. And I didn't even touch on Jalen Hurts, the MVP caliber quarterback, who's just gotten better and better every single year. So hopefully he continues to improve. And I think 12-5 for the Eagles is a good number, but on the modest side. And they should be a good team barring any, crazy injury.